Yeah, Sara and Arlen, I was talking up Skilled.space. I just got out of a meeting with Allegheny College with the environmental group that I work with down there, down in Pennsylvania. And they never heard of Skilled.space. So I was talking it all up and I'm like, you guys got to check this out. It's so cool. It's easy, low key conversation stuff. Just open up a room and it opens up nationwide, worldwide, and you can link it to your social media. So the invitation goes out that the room was open. So they seemed intrigued on it. So see if we can get them to use it.
That's great. I appreciate it. I mean,
You bet.
If teachers can benefit from it, if admins can benefit from it, why not college students? Why shouldn't there be more connections between college students? And,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I just sent a bunch of, I literally sent like 23 emails just this afternoon about it as well to a bunch of staff, like targeting specific content I thought they might be able to use it for with their students. I got a bunch of replies back like, hey, let's meet. I want to talk about it. And then several people asked about the private, like the ability to make it private just so they could do it within their classrooms, which I'm pretty sure you said is a possibility, right?
It's more than a possibility, and we're going to dive into that right now. It's happening.
I realized I said
Arlen's day. You just made Arlen's day, Renee.
Yeah.
Yeah, Renee, it's happening, and that's one of the things that we're going to be covering today. And I see that folks are jumping in here. So we are going to get into all of that stuff. Lots of stuff to talk about. Welcome everybody. We're going to get started in just a minute.
All right. Awesome.
Do I get to see when people are coming in, or I don't get to see them?
Arlen, if you pull up the participants, it'll say attendees.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
We're gonna get started in just a minute. People are shuffling in. We should be able to start right on the dot. People are coming in right now, but we'll get started in 30 seconds or so, if that works for everybody. Okay, panelists, you ready to rock and roll? I think we'll get this. Renee, you good? Okay. Awesome. All right, I think we've got everybody in the room, or most everybody in the room, so I think we'll get started. Okay, welcome everyone to Space. My name is Arlen Bitsky from Swivl's product team. We're gonna get this going now, so put on your space helmets and buckle up. I apologize for the space thing. Okay, conversations that propel your school forward. That's what Skilled.space is all about. What we've created is a way to bring Clubhouse-style FERPA, COPPA compliant live audio conversations to your schools. Now, what you get is a completely private space where teachers, students, admins, and even parents can connect when the moment is right. By the end of this, I'd love to have you all join us in space, actually in the product. And so if you haven't created an account, you could do that now. We're going to give you some info to help you do that. It's quick, super simple. Just need your name, email, and create a password. So that link will be in the chat right here. Now, we are in the business of meaningful conversations. Conversations that form new connections, conversations to explore new ideas and topics, conversations that strengthen existing relationships, and conversations that tackle hard problems. So, as we prepare to launch into yet another great conversation, I'd love to take this opportunity to let our wonderful and passionate panelists, educator panelists, to introduce themselves. So let's start with you, Renee.
Hey, everybody. My name is Renee Epstein, and I am currently a technology integration specialist at in a district that's about 6 miles, 7 miles west of downtown Chicago called River Forest. But prior, this is actually I've been in this position for 1 year. Prior to this, I was a 8th grade honors English teacher for the last 16 years. So I have absolutely embraced and really loved diving into a technology role in the midst of like a pandemic when absolutely everything is technology. And I always joke to my administrators that they did this to me because they realized like every problem they receive involves technology in some realm. So they just like pass everything on to me and they're like, we have this person that can help you. And so I kind of just have handled just the wide range of everything, but I absolutely love it. Our school adopted Swivls at the beginning of the pandemic. We got them in the summer. So my very first, literally on day one, they handed me a Swivl and they said, we need you to learn how to use this and implement it with all of our faculty by this Friday. Good luck. And we got your back and let us know what else you need. And that was kind of like the beginning of how the last year has been. So I've been really blessed to work with Swivl and I've just loved all the products that they have. So I'm honored to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Renee. How about you, Keith?
You bet. I'm Keith Piccard. I'm a science teacher for Allendale Public Schools by day and biology professor at Grand Valley State University by night. So I'm a pretty busy guy. Hold up on the intercom.
We all get it.
Golden. There we are. Okay. Anyways, Allendale Public Schools, science, biology, and GVSU biology, and whatnot. And there, hanging out with my family, either here in Allendale or up at our cottage up in northern Michigan, and hanging out in the water. I love water. If it swims, if it's a bug, it's me. So that's me. I accidentally fell into Swivl on accident. Our ISD was, they said, hey, you should check out this Swivl because I'm a very hands-on inquiry-based teacher, and I hate sitting in front of a computer screen trying to teach my remote students at GVSU and my remote students at Allendale. So the Swivl just seemed to work. And then when my subscription at the ISD ran out, I shot Swivl an email like, hey, how can I get another one? So again, I've been using Swivl ever since, and I love it. I love it. She even has names. So.
Sara?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sara Candela. Originally from New York, I taught high school English in New York and Long Island for almost 15 years. And now I work in community for Swivl. And I like to kind of call myself an audio enthusiast, but also an audio communication evangelist. So working for Swivl in spaces like Skilled.space and Synth is something that I'm super passionate about. And it's really been so exciting to work with people and meet people like Keith and Renee who are seeing what the possibilities are for this kind of communication in their school, and especially seeing Keith use it each week in Skilled.space. I'm excited to bring everybody there today and kind of offer insights as to as to how we can use this to make communication really something that transforms students and teachers.
Great, thanks. All right, so we're not in class, but here are some learning objectives. But, you know, basically overall, this is really about conversations that propel your school forward. And just to be clear, Skilled.space is a product of Swivl, the company. So just wanted to iron that out there. And so again, this is about conversations that propel your school forward and how Skilled.space gets you there. And don't forget, we do want you in space later if you have the time. So let's get started with the questions. Keith, Renee, Sara, you all ready?
We are.
Let's do it. So Renee, I'm going to start with you. What does relationship building look like at your schools?
That's a great question. And I would say that's one that has morphed over time. So I've been in the district for 17 years, and I would say like 10 years ago, even, there was a lot more natural connection and professional development and building of relationships that happened through, you know, people eating lunch together and then naturally talking about our crafts, or at team meetings, you know, staying after and having an extra cup of coffee for a couple minutes in the hallway to do that. And then people would get excited to go to conferences together. I would say in the last few years, it's been harder and harder, and the momentum has died down for some of that. I think because of the growing amounts of initiatives and stress and things that are constantly new curriculums and changes all the time, that I think everybody in education feels. I know certainly our district has had a lot of it. It's kind of brought down that momentum and morale and excitement for new initiatives and more PD. So this is definitely an area very personally that, because I experience when it's really good, how invigorating that is to have that in your workplace. It's something that I want to bring back or help to facilitate bringing back post-pandemic. Obviously this year was a little bit unique in our situations, but next year. So I would say right now, the way that it's happening is through team meetings and through department meetings, depending on how each school structured just a little bit differently, depending on the grade level. And that's really the extent of it at this present moment. So everything is happening virtually in terms of meetings, even though all of our students are back in person. Any kind of meetings are still done on Zoom. So it's whatever you can get to people virtually for us.
Got it, thanks. Any thoughts on Zoom fatigue? Any strong opinions there?
Huge amounts of it. In fact, I've had several people request, like, can we just meet in person for, you know, like we'll have to do a meeting. And so if it's less the threshold that we can, I've just switched to meeting with people in person as much as possible. I think people are just so donezo. And actually, a lot of people a lot of students, particularly in the middle school, are very much done with the cameras. Having to be on camera. So it's been a big problem for us. So it was easy for me to start to talk up Skilled.space and Synth, particularly because there isn't a camera feature, that it's just audio. So I actually think that it's very timely that this is coming into play at a time when students, but adults too, are just kind of done with having to just be staring at a camera and looking at themselves and being distracted. It's caused a lot of stress for a lot of particularly adolescent children to have to do it.
Sure, thank you. So Keith, let's go to you. What does relationship building look like at your
Yeah.
school?
Well, again, to piggyback off of Renee, you know, pre-COVID, our team was great, you know, in our building, and we still are good in that, you know, we do look out for each other. But pre-COVID, it was always weekly meetings, eating lunch together, or every Friday after school, we'd go drive down the road to Trail Point Brewery and have a couple beers and just release, you know, just talk a little bit of shop, but mostly just to connect. And we're still very, very close staff, but because a lot of our professional development, or not PD, but like staff meetings and such, well, even our PD as well, have been moved to Zoom. You know, again, it's this year in my 20 years of this business, I feel the least connected to my colleagues in work. You know, but beforehand, you know, at Grand Valley, we would be talking in the office, you know, like, hey, I have this project going. Hey, I have that project going. Hey, you know what? How can I help you with that? Because, you know, you have to do your activities report as well at the university. But it just, this year it's difficult. It's difficult. Otherwise, yeah, we are a close staff, and we know right now that, you know, we're not doing much in regards to relationship building right now, simply because, you know, it's so nebulous as to, well, is everything going to be open? Is everything going to be shut down? What's everyone's comfort zone and whatnot? So post-COVID world pandemic, I hope everything, and I have a strong feeling that it will return back to how our staff was with the relationship building.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's so much to say about, you know, people missing those you know, faculty lounge things, the coffees, the after school kinds of moments. I think it's interesting to maybe we could get Sarah's perspective. You know, not necessarily during the pandemic, but you spent years and years in the classroom. Could you maybe speak on relationship building, maybe outside of the specifically social aspect of connecting and relationships?
Yeah, actually, I did want to jump in and even comment on some of the things that Renee and Keith were bringing up, specifically Keith talking about that the routines that and habits that had been built, and like he knew, like he just kind of recited to us the patterns of a week and where the social bits of it or the connecting relationship building would have fit into a week pre-pandemic. And I'm even thinking of him saying Friday after school hangouts. And those are things that resonate with me and that were so built into the fabric of my teaching experience. But at the same time, what they did was, if I'm really truthful and think back to that, what they did was also build relationships with the same 5 or 6 people over and over again, that either, like Renee was saying, having like, you know, drinking a cup of coffee and standing in the hall and having those chats in the hallway in between classes with people who were in my department or in the same hallway as me or the same floor or had the same schedule. But not really allowing for the kind of deep connectivity that I feel like should be at this point more building wide. And I would often go a year without knowing that there had been a new science teacher like on the next floor up that was there for 8 months and I'd never spoken to, but wind up having a lot in common with. So those kinds of things are what were first jumping to mind, listening to Keith specifically, because all of those patterns of communication are something that I remember feeling like I did only have this little bubble and did not know very many people outside of it, even though I was communicating. I don't know that that's the same as connecting.
Yeah.
So that's what I would have added.
Thank you. So we're going to switch gears real quick. And, you know, I think we'll start with you on this one, Keith. What's your answer to those who say there simply isn't time for kind of real personalized professional development?
Well, you know, it's, so I was thinking about that, and, you know, as a certified educator, you have those professional development hoops to jump through. And I think if educators look at it as just that, a hoop to jump through, they're not going to get anything out of the professional development. They're going to sit there and twiddle around on their notebook and whatnot. But so like when I talk with teachers about personalized professional development, like the new teachers that I mentor and whatnot, you know, I think that, you know, my profession as a teacher, as an educator, I want to make sure I am the absolute best at what I can do. I'm competitive with myself from what I did the prior day. If I woke up 5 minutes later and what I did, it bugs me, but that's just my personality. So I believe that with professional development, you know, you need to make your professional development personalized so that you get what you want out of it specifically. if you're just sitting in a PD, a state mandated PD or a district mandated PD, and you have no connect to it, you're just wasting time and they're wasting your time. You need to find the specific professional development that will better you as an educator. Yeah, step out of your box a little bit and go check out something else, because you probably don't know anything about that, and it might open your eyes to something new. But you gotta think of what's going to make you, what works in your teaching style, and how can you make yourself a better educator. So what professional development will help you do that? And you got to be humble enough to know, what, I don't do enough reading in my class, so I got to have a professional development in reading, how to teach content literacy in a science classroom, something. And it's going to take work, but everything else, if you want to get good at it, it's going to take work. So you got to look hard, and eventually you'll find some sort of professional development I have that fits what you're looking for. And at least if you can get at least one nugget of information, something that you can take home from. So conferences I've been to, whatnot, yeah, it might be 2-3 days of a lot of just, whatever. But if I can get one or two things that I can take back to my classroom, I totally find it worth it. So again, to speak on Skilled.space, the thing I like about that is with the personalization thing. So if I have something, well, you know what, I need to learn more about this. So not to put a plug in on my Wednesday night Skilled.space stuff, but I love inquiry-based education, but I know there's a new dimension to it this year with the pandemic and a lot of remote teaching, which takes the whole hands-on inquiry-based component out of the classroom. So I'm looking for, specific to my teaching style, how is everyone else around the country, around the world, doing any sort of inquiry-based education, higher level thinking, through a computer screen, through Zoom screen, through a Google Meets screen. And so that's, with the personalized professional development, you need to make it personal. You need to reflect on your own teaching, and then figure out where do you need to get better. And again, going back on Skilled.space, if I know, well, I can't find anything, I'm going to go ahead and create a Skilled.space room, throw it out on Twitter, and see who I can catch to bring on in, and let's have a discussion with it. So that's what I got for how to personalize my professional development, or what I would say to a colleague about personalizing their professional development.
Totally. Thank you. Yeah. So Renee, I'll ask you the same question. I mean, obviously teachers have tons of time constraints, and not just teachers, admins as well. And so what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I actually have a really strong stance on this, and that is that I've shared this with so many different people, like teachers over the years I've mentored, but I have a strict one-to-one policy on professional development. So for everything I have to attend, that's something I don't necessarily think is going to be positive for me or affect me in a way that's going to be useful to me, I then make sure I push to attend something that I know is something I'm really passionate or interested about. Most of the time, whatever it is that I think I'm not going to like or get something out of, I end up getting something or taking something from. But my mentality and my outlook on it is so much better if I know that I'm working towards something that I really want to do. So a couple quick examples of how I do that. I apply for like every possible grant I can that I come across. That's something that I could meaningfully fit into my curriculum or whatever it is that I'm doing in my current role. Some you get, some you don't, but there's a lot of amazing grants out there where you can literally personalize your professional development to exactly what it is that you want to do. And for me, when I'm working on one of those, and sometimes the applications can take months and months or the span of a school year, depending on how big it is, I'm so much more open to when I have to go to things that either my school sends me to or that I don't feel like I necessarily want to go to. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I share with a lot of teachers, because I think if you or any educator and really administrators would benefit from it too, if there's something in the background like a genius hour project that is just yours and that you're working on and that will still positively impact your classroom or your people that you coach or people that you lead, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to kind of muster through, if you will, things that you don't think apply to you, but I think most of the time things do apply to you. You just have to be more receptive to it. So I actually did a Skilled.space room, I don't know, 2 weeks ago on personalized professional development opportunities. Like I got a grant and I went to Europe for part of a summer a couple of years back and got to design my own research project, and it was fully funded, and it was like the experience of a lifetime. But that's like the high end of how you can personalize professional development, but those opportunities are out there, and it makes it so much better if you keep that 1-to-1 ratio in mind all the time of like, I'm going to go to something they make me go to, they make me go to, and then I'm going to push something out for myself, even if it's just one conference that I try to apply to go to, etc. So that's my kind of bandwagon on the personalized professional development.
Thanks, Renee. I'm going to go back to Keith real quick. So I think you touched on, connecting with colleagues outside of the classroom, but how do you find ways to connect specifically on shared interests, Keith? Topics around education to support your PD goals.
Yep. Every Friday, we still meet with the restaurants open in Michigan now. We still meet, and we've been doing this for 15 some odd years. Every Friday morning, we meet at a local restaurant for breakfast. And it's a bunch of us educators and who all started teaching together. Now, some are admin in other districts at the ISD and whatnot. But we always meet and we're always just discussing education. What's going, hold up one moment. There we are, you stop please. But what's going on in education? What are you running into in regards to students, in regards to colleagues, in regards to parents and whatnot? That's one thing. In our department, our science department, one of us, as a whole department, we are very, very geared and our personalities are very driven. Maybe it's just the biology, physics, something with it where we just a very competitive nature. So we know that, okay, here's our goal. We need to get to here. We need to get to here. What roadblocks are we seeing either put out by admin? What roadblocks are we seeing from the state? What's coming down at the federal level to the state level, or from the state level to our local level? So how can we prep for that going forward? So, yeah, with building our between the colleagues with it, it just, we all know what our goals are, and we're very driven and we work our butts off, and we respect everybody's work ethic. So we go on from there. And I apologize for the intercom. I'm going to mute myself on that.
No problem at all. Thanks, Keith. Sara, in your experience, finding ways to connect over shared interests, what was your approach there?
I often joke, well, not often, but sometimes joke about if I had known the kind of reach that I could have had if I had been like in educational Twitter when I was a teacher, and I've only been out of the classroom about 3 years, but if I had known that, I often think like, would I have been a little more encouraged to kind of stay and find a community? Because I come from a background of having difficulty achieving what Keith is describing. To me sounds like heaven, of having this group of people who are so connected and driven and seem, and you even, I think, said that they sometimes were people who are even in other buildings now, but you all are gathered together under this, kind of shared discourse and purpose and drive. And I often struggled with that, finding that as far as just within a building. And what I wound up doing over the years, I think in about 15 years of teaching, I worked in 3 school buildings, I think. And what I wound up, and even still to this day, as far as the educators I speak to the most, are still people that I worked with in my very first school. So what I wound up doing was piecing together people from various experiences, almost kind of like what Keith is saying, but But when I was teaching, like if I even think of my last year, couple years, as far as people I was working with every day, I don't think, you know, you can't choose who's in that building, wherever it is you are. So I think that, you know, when I think about moving beyond the walls of where I was or where I am, or where you are, it's, I think imperative to me to be able to find ways to communicate that are going, it's the same thing like when we're thinking of personalized PD, this is like personalized learning, personalized communication, it's the same thing, only you're thinking about your own building relationships. And that would have been necessity for me. And that's why I always say, like, if I had known that educational Twitter existed and all of these pathways, you know, that I could have taken, who knows, maybe I would have been more encouraged to build my network outward, but I just didn't have that knowledge.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like it's to some degree a problem of discovery, right? I mean, you start with whatever commonalities you have, and for in Keith's experience, one commonality, maybe they didn't have anything else in common, but they at least started teaching together, and that's one thing that brings people together. And you know, how can we do more to help people understand and feel out their teaching community and understand what people are into and their approaches to things. So that's great, Sara and Keith and Renee. Let's switch gears again. It's all about the students, right? So let's get to the student side of things. Keith, I'm going to ask you first. With your students, what opportunities are there for discovery and exploration, excuse me, and asking the simple question, what do you want to learn today?
Yep. Okay. So regarding students, you know, discovery, you know, again, it's so easy to do in science at any level, from kindergarten all the way through graduate level courses at the college. But basically, you know, it's how an educator, whether it be an elementary teacher or a tenured track college professor, how are they going to gear their learning targets? Do they know what curriculum they need to teach? So whether it be the K-12 state benchmarks standards or national benchmarks standards, or the university board standards. You know, if you are familiar enough with what your goal is per whatever course you're teaching, so you have very, very clear learning targets. And then once you have those clear learning targets set up and they're communicated to the students, and you kind of guide it in at first. So it's got to be a guided inquiry from there, but off of there, you know that this is where you want the students to go. So you might need to prod them a little bit. Well, you could explore this, you could explore that, you could explore that, you know, and so that's where the guided part comes in. So they just don't go off on a tangent and you totally miss your learning target that you're going for. So again, it's got to be geared with specific learning targets, so the students can't shift away from there, you know, and then you're always checking up on them. Don't just say, okay, go learn about photosynthesis and go. And then just go check out, you know, you got to, okay, well, let's discuss. What do you guys know about photosynthesis? Awesome, cool. Well, hey, I wonder if corn photosynthesizes differently than a maple tree. We'll go look it up. Hey, wait a second, what's this C3 and C4 photosynthesizers? I don't know, you tell me. Go figure it out. So you got to kind of guide the students through their thought process, because a lot of times, you know, they lack the confidence in themselves. They're like, well, I don't have my PhD and blah, blah, blah. I don't know enough to do the discovery. No, you do. You don't need your PhD. You can just go ahead and work from there, you know. Try to learn. So again, you have your specific standards and your specific learning targets that are student-friendly language geared towards those standards. So you have your end product, you know what goal you want to get. You keep those students engaged to make sure, so you're checking progress and whatnot. Where are you at on this? Where are you at on that? Go back to your driving question. Do you have an answer for that yet? Do you have a question for it? How are you going to be reaching that? You know, and that's the whole scientific process, you know, from did you develop your hypothesis? Okay, did you control for this? Did you control for that? Whatnot. And then once they get the idea and the confidence to think scientifically, then, and I won't use the word think scientifically, I'll use think critically, because then that can be used across any subject matter. Critical thinking skills, it's something that's lacking, I think, a lot in today's society. So thinking critically about what your learning targets are, then you open up the environment, you set that classroom environment, that lecture hall environment for, well, what do you want to learn about today? Go from there. So that's worked for me for the past, well, 2 decades now, so it's good.
Awesome. And
Yep.
Renee, you know, what opportunities are there to just kind of face the kids and say, you know, what do you want to learn about today?
Well, I think absolutely. I actually just threw this out to a bunch of ELA teachers and social studies teachers today in relation to showing them. I did a little preview of Skilled.space for them, and I kind of actually pitched that idea of, you know, for social studies, there's some opportunity for like the upper middle school teachers to take the general theme that they're working on, like they just finished their unit on World War II, and throw out a couple of different rooms that had World War II themes, and then ask, you know, let the kids kind of just really make a choice of what interested them the most and be able to dive into some different discussions. For ELA teachers, I threw out the idea, a lot of them work with book clubs, and so, but there's very little opportunity to cross collaborate with different classrooms that are like on different levels, or even like our honors classes. That was always something when I was teaching it, I was very aware of, like, how do I want honor students to also be able to collaborate with students that maybe aren't in honors classes, and what are forums to be able to do that. So I threw out a couple of specific things with sharing around different book clubs that they're in. They might be reading the same book because they're in book club groups, but they could have these shared discussions on it. So I think that what Skilled.space particularly allows the opportunity for you to do is to create these rooms, these opportunities for the kids to gather together, not so much just within the same classroom. I think about it more like in terms of schools or districts, or especially if you're in, maybe there's like, I know some schools, I mean, I live in Chicago, so schools districts are huge, but some of them there's like 4 middle schools in one district. So it kind of allows people to collaborate in those sorts of ways. I don't have as much experience in straight up inquiry-based teaching as Keith does, for sure, just because I was in ELA and we did more thematic teaching, but his ideas are amazing. And I think everything he was saying, you could apply right into Skilled.space with the different, the venue that you've created there.
That's great.
That was inspiring, Keith, everything you were talking about. I have to,
Oh, thank you. Sorry, dogs.
Okay, let's move on to the next question, because we're inching towards our launch into space here. So starting with Keith, what are the key factors needed to create a safe space for teachers and for students to really talk about, you know, their learning and share interests and the skills they need to grow?
Yeah. Okay. I guess the start of every semester, you know, first day of classes, you know, as an educator, I set my standards, and I make my standards very, very, very clear to the students. You know, this is what my expectations are. You know, so then you go from there, and then in order to create that learning environment, that shared interest environment where students are comfortable to get something wrong or whatnot, is as a teacher, I have to show them that, guess what? I'm vulnerable too. I don't know everything. And I make that very, very clear. You know, my college students, you know, I'll start off class, first lesson is always about inquiry, you know, how to think scientifically. And I'll do a quick survey. All right, raise your hand if you know of any scientific hypothesis that's been proven. You know, and a couple hands will go up, and I'll call them. I'll go, tell me what it is. Well, I go, no. In science, guess what? We have never proven any hypothesis right. That's not the way science works. You don't prove something. You find evidence to support or refute your hypothesis. You cannot prove anything. We have not proven anything. Never. That's not how science works. And then you get further into this, in the class discussions and whatnot, and the students are like, well, you tell me, what do you know? And my best answer for that is, I don't know. I don't know. So again, I need to show as an educator that, you know what, I don't know everything, but I am human, and gosh darn it, I'm going to make sure I do know. You know, the learning never stops. It doesn't stop once you get your fancy, expensive piece of paper from whatever university you graduated from, but we're always learning. We are always learning. So again, I make it very clear to the students, yep, I got all these fancy degrees or whatnot, but I don't know everything. I don't. You know something that I probably have zero idea about. And once they can see that, they see the vulnerability that I have as an educator, and I'll guide them to help them figure out how they need to grow in this and how they need to grow in that. But they need to know that, yeah, you know what, I don't know everything, and guess what? I'm going to get stuff wrong. I'll use an example. I was talking, minerals, rocks and minerals, goodness, long time ago. And I remember from my undergrad studies in geology that quartz is the most abundant mineral in the Earth's crust. And all of a sudden, I had a student raise her hand, you know, a Allendale student, not a university student, not a GVSU student, but an Allendale student, Piccard, PK, quartz, I always thought it was feldspar. And I'm like, no way, it's not feldspar. And sure enough, I'm like, we looked it up, and I'm like, look at that, guys. Yes, it is feldspar. It's not quartz. Here I am thinking it was quartz for the longest time. And so right there, yep, this veteran scientist gets corrected. And so I made it very clear to all the students, look I got that wrong. That's okay. You know, we're going to get things wrong. It's all about the process of learning. Step out of your comfort zone and learn. It's okay. And you're not going to know everything. You don't need to know everything, but you'll be learning as you go through there. So again, I open up to them about stuff. If they ask me a question, yeah, even if I do know the answer, I'll tell them, well, I don't know, just because I want them to discover it on their own. There's higher level thinking involved if you actually have to go and find what you need to, instead of just getting spoon fed by a teacher. You know, it's a big inquiry component. But for things that I have zero idea about, I'll open it up to them and say, okay, well, let's find out together. You know, you are going to research, I'll research, and I'm just going to help you to make sure you don't hit the first thing that shows up on your Google search engine, because you know what, I'm going to at least turn this into a lesson so you know what information is good out there. You know, does it end in .edu, .gov, or whatever. So that's how I set up that space for in my classroom, in my lecture halls with my students and whatnot, of just, you know, getting them to grow. And in order for them to get to feel comfortable with growing, is they got to feel comfortable with me. They got to know that we're always learning. You know what? There's going to be stuff where I'm not going to know, but we'll figure it out, because we will.
That's awesome, Keith. Renee, if you have just some quick thoughts on creating a safe space, and then we'll head to our last question.
Yeah, sure. So I think Keith did an awesome job summarizing, like, specifically for students. So I'll kind of talk a little bit about how I do it with teachers in more of a coaching role, but I think it applies to students. So I think that first of all, any kind of new platform, there has to be buy-in. And so I try to create it through first making sure teachers or students understand what the platform or the product or the program is, and sort of generally speaking how it works. And then I try to point out very targeted, specific ways that it would be useful to that particular teacher's craft or content area or grade level. And if it's not maybe specific to them, I actually point that out and say, maybe it's not specific for you, but maybe you know somebody who might want to use it. And then I always try to wrap up, whether it's a presentation or an email or a phone conversation or a Zoom or whatever we're on, with like 2 to 3 specific, like they could take and use it tomorrow ways. And I think that creates that buy-in for people when you're just really specific. And I would say I did that with my students as well. I'm just not living in this moment in that world. And so that's something that I found adults have really appreciated. So if there's people on this call that are team leaders or in areas where they're coaching other adults in any fashion, I think that's kind of a helpful like rule to live by.
That's great. I'm going to go back to you actually, Renee. You touched on this a little bit, but we're going to pull up everybody into space in just a couple minutes. So would you be able to kind of provide us with some practical uses for Skilled Space in your school with students and teachers and admins?
Yeah, so actually, honestly, like I've been making lists, and I think those are the 3 different groups. And actually, there's a really amazing opportunity to pull in parents as well in a school community with Skilled Space. But with students, I think a natural first really great place for it is with any kind of literature or English class, like a book club, like I was saying, a social studies class, something where you have like a theme that you could talk about. I pitched it to our art teacher because she does she does different like histories of different artists or some really cool topics. I think that could be a neat place to have it. For admin, I've got a list going of, moving different PDs or team meetings on the Skilled Space just to kind of change it up a little bit and freshen things up. Same goes for like pick your own topic for the building meeting at the end of the week, and there'd be like a list of options, and you would get different team leaders to run the different spaces in lieu of going to like a whole building meeting together. And then I run these things called parent universities for where I work, and I like push out informational sessions to parents to help them on all the different learning management systems and technology platforms so that they feel more informed. I've been doing them as more traditional presentations or, live presentations, but I actually think I might try one in Skilled Space at the end of the year to let parents, I'd have to figure this out because I would need people to actually run the different rooms, but I need more than just me probably, but I think it'd be a cool way to sort of see that natural organic conversation happen between parents and sort of give them an opportunity. It wouldn't be as much learning per se, but more collaborating.
Yep, we love collaborating, as much. Sara, and any thoughts on practical uses of Skilled Space from your English teaching days?
I love everything that Renee was just saying, and I love that she's bringing up the concept of collaboration because that's such a key part of this of the audio component. I think is really and bringing in parents to that situation too. I was like, yeah, I can't nod my head in agreement fast enough because I think it really is an opportunity to level the playing field and to bring in voices that have different perspectives that maybe would not have been in the same room with each other in a traditional setting, or maybe the coordination of such a meeting or such an event would take a longer or more complicated route. And now you're having an opportunity to bring people together who would not perhaps be able to have their viewpoints heard in the same space or whatever the case may be. But as far as from my English teaching background, I mean, it's another thing where I'm like, I just want to work with kids right now in Skilled Space and hold like really cool. I mean, I taught AP literature as well. And I want to hold not just book talks, but like, poetry readings. And I want kids to be able to, the way we have envisioned Skilled Space is not showing that one person is on the stage, but we're all together helping one another. So giving them that power to say, this is what I think you could do with this particular project, but letting the kids think about how they could actually develop it further, because we're not saying one person is the speaker and the rest of you have to listen, which everyone will see in a few moments. I think, yeah, my mind just goes wild with how I think, and knowing how I was as a teacher and a student, where I would have jumped at the chance to really be able to use my voice instead of being constantly pressured to be looked at all the time, I think is a really big deal for me. And I know a lot of the students that I had in those situations would have felt the same way.
Thanks, Sara. Keith, if you could take us home, maybe we have just a minute
You
or
bet.
so. And then we're going to hop into space. Excited to see everybody there. But Keith, just your thoughts on some
Yep.
practical uses.
Yeah, practical uses. Again, I like what Renee was talking about. You know, again, I think of just more professional development, reaching out with fellow educators, but the classroom side of it, I haven't put a whole lot of thought into putting students in there. But now with the FERPA stuff, I got to play around with more of those settings. But so now saying that, yeah, I mean, breakout sessions during staff meetings would be fine, because there's always, those Zoom ones where teachers don't want to turn their cameras on or whatnot. So it's Skilled.space perfectly for them. Content review and just subject discussions out there for students, just to join on in and we just have a talk like what Sara was talking about. Maybe not necessarily poetry reading in a biology class, but something in regards to that content. So there's so many avenues that can be explored with that in education and in the classroom. Again, we just got to figure it out. It's a new product, so go from there.
That's great. All right, so I want to thank all of our panelists. That was all really great stuff, and we hope that you can join us in space. We hope that everybody can join us in space. So that concludes our the panel portion. And as you can see in the Zoom chat, we have a link straight into the specific Skilled.space space. That's the live audio room where we can all connect. And we will address everybody's questions that were asked during the panel, as well as field any other questions that you have. But there's only so much that I can say about Skilled.space. You got to kind of see it in action, and looking forward to meeting everybody up in space.
Hey, Arlen, what room are we going to be going into?
I don't think the link is there.
So we've just sent out the link in the chat, and I will tell you exactly what the space name is in a minute.
It just says webinar welcome.
Okay.
Webinar welcome.
Thank you.
I don't see the
Got
link.
it.
Just post
Why
it in the
that?
chat. So just go ahead and click on the link and it should take you right to space. Unless you
All right.
haven't created an account, which it'll prompt that first and then get you in.
I don't see the link in the
The
chat.
link is not in the chat. I think that's why we're asking.
Sorry, everybody. We'll get that link shortly.
Okay, now it is.
There they are. That's what happens when you're chatting with lots of people.
Okay, so we will greet you all in space, in that specific space. Just click that link and you'll pop in. If you haven't registered yet, it'll just ask for name, email, password, and then it'll pop you right into space. Looking forward to seeing everybody there and addressing everybody's questions. We can also talk pilots if you'd like, to see about options for kind of a closed network for your school or district. I will stick around for just a minute if anybody has any challenges getting in. But otherwise, thank you all for joining, and we'll see you in space.
Arlen, I'm happy to stay on and direct anybody over who's lost, if you guys want to jump to space.
Wonderful. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everybody.
No, second grade came back first.
And just so everybody knows,
Hey,
when you
Arlen,
join space,
are you
there
going to
are
share that? Could I get it? I saw you recorded that video. Could I share it out with admin? The file to it? To this PD?
Webinar? This webinar?
This webinar one, yeah.
Absolutely, yes. So we are going to send this recording and some other stuff to everybody who attended today.
Awesome.
Thanks, Keith.
Golden. Good. All right.
in here. So,
Ooh, there's something going on.
Somebody
with all-